What's going on, people? So, a while ago, if you've been following along, maybe you remember this, I picked up two pairs of 997Hs, right? And I was cool with them, right? I had no complaints. I thought these are pretty alright. I see why people like them. But one of the things that I kind of wanted to inquire into was what are the other New Balance shoes like, right? Because there's a lot of them, right? And I've only scratched like a small portion of a fraction of the surface. So I'm trying to branch out just a little bit. And in this particular case, I'm not branching out too far because I'm still in the 997 series, just swapping out that H for an S, right? So from what I've heard, these are supposed to be pretty decent, but the thing is, just because somebody says they're pretty decent or whatever, like you can't just go only on that, right? You gotta get them for yourself, if you can get them out of the box, that is, and see what you think. Because until that point, everything you hear is just what you hear. You gotta find out for yourself, people. Don't always just go by what you hear and just pass that off as fact to other people. Investigate it. That's kind of the moral of that story. So, $56 later, here we are, because I happen to have 20 Hibbit dollars or whatever they call them, and these were already on sale for 70. That brought them down to 50. Then you add in a little bit for taxes and or shipping. I'm not quite sure. I just know that they wanted $56 from me, and I was cool with it. So here we are. Let's go ahead and get these things opened up, see what we're looking at. There we go. Let's see, pretty decent, right? I do like this kind of colorway. It's one of the ones that I don't come across very often, but when I do, it makes me want to buy it, even though it's not an always guaranteed sort of thing. But I do have, some Air Max Pluses, like one of those OG ones. Did a video on those a while ago, and never did a video because it was before the video days. But the the Vapor Max Plus, remember those came out originally in a sunset sort of colorway like these. But, that's neither here nor there. What is here and there, or whatever, is these. So we're going to talk about these because that's, again, what we're here for. So looking at them real quick, make sure everything looks on the up and up, and it seems to. So that means that, yes, right now, it is review time on this right here, ladies and gentlemen, the New Balance 997S in the Sunset colorway. Not too bad, not too bad. I'll skip the whole thing about showing you guys the side of the box and all that, but there's that for you in case you're curious what's on the side of it. When you take these breaks, sometimes you just get a little bit rusty. I was just talking to Jeezy about that, one of the few people I've talked to during this little step away period. But anyways, we can talk about me later, or we won't. We probably won't. We're going to talk about these, like I said we would. So we're going to talk about the bottom first, because I generally do that. There you go. There's the bottom of the shoe. So, across the bottom here, I don't know if this is like the standard outsole. I'm going to assume that it is, but nothing too crazy going on down there. You got some black on the front. You got some reddish orange on the back, and a little bit of white somewhere in the middle of there with that motion control device. Not sure what all is going on with that, but maybe I'll figure that out between now and actually posting this video whenever that happens to be. But moving on, we're going to talk about the midsole now. So this, on the outside, the lateral side, you got this end cap reveal on the back, and then it just kind of stays black with that. And then there's a little bit of white around on the front, but if you look on the medial side, it's more white than black on that portion. So swooping around to the back, you have the absorb thing on the back there, which I'm guessing has something to do with the heel portion, and maybe it's going to give you some extra comfort, as that is one of the things for the S's. They're supposed to be good for that, but we'll get into the comparisons and whatnot later. So there's that for you, but I'll have the pictures in there to at least show you what it's looking like, and then moving on past all that to the upper, right? So this is the upper here. Down here around the toe box, you've got a lot of the same suede type of style as you find on the other ones, or at least the other 997Hs that I have. Just a slightly different cut as far as like the way the fabric looks or whatever. And then behind that, you've got a very cushiony feeling mesh with that orange and yellow gradient going on. And honestly, this felt pretty thick, and I thought that maybe there was one of those pads of paper in there. It's not. It just feels that way. So that's kind of a good thing. It's making me have some high hopes for these when I actually put them on, which we'll get to in about 5 or so minutes. And then moving on to the back. Well, behind that anyway, not quite the back. In the middle, you've got the end for New Balance on that side and also on that side. Behind that, you've got a leather-ish kind of material going on, and outlining that end, you have a bit of yellow stitching to match up with the yellow that is lining below the laces. So there's that. And then moving on past that, you've got a little black strip on the side, which kind of reminds me of the lace holder area of the Air Max 90. And you've got a little piece at the top holding down those laces. And then behind that, you get back to the whole meshy thing with more of that gradient. This time, not so much of the yellow, more of a reddish orange with a little bit of that goldish yellow down at the very bottom. And then moving on to the back, you got a little bit more of that suede. Seems to be some pretty nice fabric going on there, so that's a plus. And then above that, it's not quite the same feel as the rest of the shoe, but it does have that mesh look to it. It just feels a bit different because you can kind of tell it's different, right? So there's that for you. Overall, nice little gradient from front to back. Some pretty solid materials all around as well. So I'm on board so far. But let's go ahead and finish this review before we go, saying what we think. On to the lacing, right? So there you have that. Now, nothing too fancy about these. They're just very standard flat laces. And then behind that, you've got a nice padded tongue with the 997S on the tip there. And that's it. So moving on into the inside here. So there's that for you. You got the whole 997S thing. Same exact styling as is on the tongue, just bigger because it's on the inside and the insole is generally bigger, right? So there's that for you. Again, nothing too crazy about it, but supposedly the good stuff comes in when you actually wear the shoe, which is important. So I believe we've covered this whole thing. As far as I'm looking at, I don't see anything that I don't think I covered. And again, I can't give much background on the shoe as far as what it's made like and all that good stuff because I honestly don't know. I just know that it's a sportier version of the 997. So there's that. But that's neither here nor there, or whatever. Not doing that again. We're going to talk about the sizing. That's what we're going to do. And the comfort and all that good stuff. But before I can do that, I have to put these on and see what it's all about because I've never worn a pair before. You know what I'm saying? So give me a second. I'll be right back with the videos and all that good stuff and we'll get this thing finished up. Alright? Okay, so first things first. I did think that these looked a little bit bulkier compared to the 997H. And they are, and you do feel a slight increase in weight, but it's like not even really noticeable like that, you know what I'm saying? Not significant. So there is that. They are just a tad bit heavier. As far as how they look on feet, you can be the judge of that for yourself by watching the video. Now past that, the walking around in them, they are much more comfortable, I must say. That is a significant difference. So versus the 997H, the H was very solid throughout as far as the midsole goes. Walking around on these, it felt so much better from heel to toe, everything in there, right? So that's a huge plus. If that's what you're looking for, you might want to lean this way, right? Now past that, as far as the actual sizing goes, to me, they feel like they both fit the same. So whatever you buy in the other ones, the other 997Hs or whatever, I'd say go with that. Now, for me, right, generally my size is a 9.5. That's what I buy in most things. And so these, they feel like there's a bit of room in the toe area, right? They do also feel a little bit wider to me than the 997H, but I wouldn't necessarily say to drop down a half or anything. However, if your size, your preferred size isn't available, I think I'd go down before I considered going up. That's just my take on it. But all in all, I think that this is a pretty solid shoe. I've got no complaints with it. And like I said, if I had known about these earlier, I'd probably have a good handful more of them because they're lightweight. Overall, I know I said they're heavier, but they're still light, right? So they're a lightweight shoe, pretty good for whatever you might be wanting to do. So that's going to be my overall thoughts on these, right? If you got some questions or whatever and the question wasn't answered, please go ahead and ask it and I will answer it, more than likely. And if you have questions that were already answered, well, I think we all know how that goes now, don't we? So that being that, I'm going to hold these up real quick to kind of give you a little comparison. One thing that might be worth throwing in here is that personally, I would have dropped down to the 9, but I give a lot of my shoes that I don't really wear anymore to my brother because he's a 9.5. So that's part of the reason that I stuck with the 9.5. But again, do what makes sense to you. So obviously this being the H, this being the S, to some extent you can kind of see that it's a little wider over here. It even looks that way to me, feels that way to me. Maybe it's just me, I don't know. Figure it out for yourself if you are on the fence or whatever. Go to your local store, I'm sure they have all kinds of these. I would imagine, they don't seem hard to find. And then as far as the bulkiness thing that I was saying, let me switch these out so I can show you both the same side. So there you go, little side by side sort of action, right? You kind of see there's a lot more going on here than here. But overall, I'd say it's not even a huge difference. So if you're thinking that, get that out of your head. Personal opinion, of course. Do whatever you really want to do at the end of the day. As long as it makes sense and it's not illegal. But anyways, speaking of the end of the days, we're at the end of the video. So, from me to you, have a nice rest of your day or rest of your night, whatever it is, wherever you are. Don't be afraid to comment down below and compliment me on my super cool Rowdy Piper shirt. I'm totally open to that. And I will eventually be back online doing stuff. I'm just knocking out these videos now so that I don't have a backlog later because I'm not a huge fan of the backlogs, right? So yeah, these will be out there whenever they're out there. And we'll talk about them, all that good stuff. All right, later people.